You are currently being farmed. Every hour you spend in that cubicle, every sad desk salad you eat, and every notification you ignore from your own dreams is a dividend paid to a system that views you as nothing more than a biological battery. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for a retirement that will never come, or if it does, they will be too old and too tired to enjoy it. The traditional path is a slaughterhouse, but there is a glitch in the machine. In this video, we are not discussing tips for saving money. We are revealing the 3 sovereignty codes, 3 specific financial milestones that move you from being a servant of the economy to being its architect. We will break down the brutal math of the $3,500 and $8,300 monthly marks. If you understand these levels, you stop playing the game of survival and start playing the game of power. By the end of this deep dive, you will have the exact blueprint to buy back your life. Welcome to Pinto Invests. The first milestone is not about luxury, it is about validation. In the elite circles of Wall Street, we call this the proof of concept. Most people operate on a linear income model, no work equals no pay. This is the fundamental lie of the modern era. We have been conditioned to believe that income is a result of our physical presence. The moment you see $1,000 hit your account that did not come from your boss, your brain undergoes a permanent chemical rewiring. You realize that wealth is not a job, it is a system. To generate $1,000 a month purely through the S&P 500 or dividend-yielding stocks, you need roughly $300,000 in invested capital. For the average person, $300,000 sounds like an impossible mountain. It is a number that causes the math barrier, making them quit before they even start. They look at their bank account, see a few $100s, and realize that at their current rate of saving, it will take them 30 years just to hit the first milestone. This is where the system wins. It makes the goal seem so distant that you stop trying. But the 1% do not start by climbing the mountain of capital. They start by building a steam engine. The average person saves pennies from their salary and hopes for an 8% return in 40 years. The elite use active passive income. They build digital assets, YouTube channels, specialized software, or automated service businesses. Imagine you are trying to move a massive train. The average person tries to push the train with their bare hands. That is their 9-to-5 job. It is exhausting, soul-crushing, and ultimately the train barely moves. The elite person spends their nights building a steam engine. At first, it's just a pile of cold iron. It looks like a waste of time. Your friends are out at bars, your family thinks you're obsessive, and the engine sits there, cold and useless. But once you light the fire, once that digital product begins to sell or that channel gains traction, the engine creates internal pressure. Suddenly, the train moves on its own. $1,000 a month is the moment the wheels turn for the first time. It is the end of the theoretical phase. You are no longer reading about wealth, you are witnessing it. At this level, you have achieved micro-sovereignty. $1,000 covers your utilities, your high-speed internet, and your groceries. You have essentially outsourced your basic survival to your assets. You are no longer 100% a slave, you are now 90% a slave. That 10% difference is where your courage begins to grow. You start to walk a little taller in the office. You realize that if the worst happened, you wouldn't starve. Most people are terrified to even look at their bank accounts. They prefer the safety of their cage because the outside world looks too big. But you are here, listening to this. Are you a spectator who just watches these videos for a temporary hit of motivation, or are you a builder who is currently laying the first bricks of your engine? Identify yourself in the comments right now. Are you at level 0, or have you already tasted first blood with your first passive dollar? Be honest. The first step to escaping the matrix is admitting you are in it. Now we enter the realm of the shield of immunity. In the world of finance, this is often called lean financial independence, but for the visionaries, it is much more aggressive. It is the point where you become untouchable. The math here is more demanding. To generate $3,500 a month passively, you need between $600,000 and $1 million in traditional assets. Alternatively, it represents 2 to 3 high-yield rental properties owned without debt. Think of your life as a city. In the average life, your city is constantly under attack by projectiles of fear. The rent is due, the car broke down, the boss is in a bad mood and needs someone to blame. You are always one bad day away from total destruction. At $3,500 a month, you have built an iron dome over your life. When your manager screams at you for a report that doesn't matter, the average person feels their heart rate spike. They swallow their pride and accept the humiliation because they need that paycheck to keep the lights on. But when the visionary with $3,500 in passive income is yelled at, they simply smile. They realize that their housing, food, and transportation are already paid for by their engine. The projectiles of the corporate world explode harmlessly against the Iron Dome. This is not about being rich. It is about being immune to the whims of others. The most dangerous thing about this milestone is that it makes you lethal in the marketplace. Because you no longer need the job, you become the most powerful person in the room. You can say no to bad deals. You can negotiate for higher stakes. You can take asymmetrical risks. The kind where the downside is capped because you still have your baseline income, but the upside is a $1 million breakthrough. Ironically, the less you need money, the easier it becomes to attract it. This is the gravity of wealth. When you aren't desperate, you make better decisions. You think in decades while everyone else is thinking about Friday night. But wait, while $3,500 buys you freedom from fear, it does not buy you the world. There is a twilight zone between being safe and being powerful. We are about to cross that bridge into the 8,300 mark, where the math stops being logical and starts becoming obscene. Welcome to the abundance milestone. $8,300 a month is the golden $100,000 a year mark. To reach this through the stock market or high-end real estate, you generally need a portfolio of $2.5 million. See, at this stage, the engine we discussed earlier has become a nuclear reactor. This is the wealth singularity. This is where your money earns more while you are asleep than a doctor earns while they are performing surgery. If your $2.5 million portfolio has a standard good year in the S&P 500 returning 10%, your net worth grows by $250,000. You did not work for that $250,000. You did not attend a single Zoom meeting for it. You did not trade a single second of your life for it. This is the total decoupling of time and existence. Imagine a farmer. At milestone 1, the farmer is hand-planting seeds in the rain. It's grueling and he's covered in mud. At milestone 2, the farmer has a small tractor. Life is better, but he still has to sit in the seat and drive. At milestone 3, the farmer owns a fleet of autonomous AI-driven drones and harvesters. He can be on a beach in the Mediterranean, and the harvest happens regardless. The grain is sold, the profit is deposited, and the farm expands itself. The average person, if they ever reach this level, would immediately buy a Lamborghini and a mansion, putting themselves back into the survival mindset just to pay for the maintenance of their toys. The 1% understand that at $8,300 a month, the goal is not nicer things, it is total optionality. At this level, work becomes a hobby. You only do what you love, with people you like, on projects that matter. You have successfully exited the matrix. You are no longer a statistic in a government database, you are a sovereign entity. Think back to the last time you felt truly powerless. Maybe it was a bill you couldn't pay, or a boss who humiliated you because they knew you couldn't afford to quit. We've all been there. That weight on your chest is the feeling of being a slave to the system. What would your life look like tomorrow if that weight was gone? Describe the first thing you would do if you hit milestone 2. Don't hold back. Let the frustration out in the comments so we can turn it into fuel. This community is the only place where that anger is understood and channeled into creation. We must address the skepticism in your mind. You are looking at these numbers, 300,000, 1 million, 2.5 million, and you are thinking that this is impossible for someone like you. You are right. It is impossible for the person you are today. The person who prioritizes comfort, who watches 5 hours of Netflix, and who fears the judgment of their broke peers will never reach milestone 1. The journey from 0 to 1,000 is exponential, not linear. Most people quit at $400 a month because they feel the effort is too high for the reward. They are working 60 hours a week between their job and their side hustle and only seeing a few $100s. They think it's not worth it. They are looking for instant gratification in a game that rewards long-term infrastructure. Imagine you are building a giant snowball. At first, you are just picking up tiny flakes of snow with your fingers. It's cold, your hands hurt, and the ball is the size of a marble. This is the invisible phase. You are putting in 90% of the effort for 1% of the result. This is where the matrix filters out the weak. But once the ball reaches a certain size, you stop picking up snow. You just push. And every time the ball rolls over, it picks up more snow than it did the time before. By milestone 3, the ball is so big that its own gravity pulls snow toward it. You don't even have to push anymore. You just watch it grow. The reason 99% of people stay poor is that they stop when the ball is the size of a marble. They don't have the stomach for the brutal slog of the early phase. The elite don't look at $400 and see small money. They see infrastructure. They know that the skills they learn to make 400 are the exact same skills required to make 4,000. It is just a matter of scale and leverage. If you are at 0 today, your only job is to stop being a consumer and start being a producer. Every dollar you earn from your labor must be treated as a soldier. Do not send your soldiers out to buy fancy coffee or designer clothes. Send them out to capture more soldiers. This is the war for your freedom. True wealth is not a number in a bank account. It is the absence of anxiety. It is the ability to look at the world and realize that nothing in it owns you. Most people are wealthy on paper but remain poor in spirit because they are still tethered to a system of permission. At Pinto Invest, we don't care about your net worth. We care about your cash flow velocity. Cash flow is oxygen. Net worth is just potential energy. You can't breathe potential energy. As for those of you still watching, here is the hardest truth of all. The system does not want you to succeed. Your bank wants you in debt. Your employer wants you dependent. Your government wants you taxed and compliant. The 3 sovereignty codes we discussed today are not just financial goals, they are acts of rebellion. To achieve them, you must be willing to be the outcast for a few years so you can be the king for the rest of your life. If you are looking for a comfortable life, stay in the 99%. Keep eating the sad salad and waiting for the weekend. But if you are looking for a sovereign life, prepare for the brutal slog of the first 1,000. It will test you. It will make you want to quit. But on the other side of that struggle is a version of reality that 99% of humans will never experience. If you are a true architect of your own destiny and you've stayed until the final second, let us know you are part of the 1%. Type the secret password, "I am the architect," in the comments. This is how we find the visionaries in a sea of spectators. We are building a community of people who refuse to be farmed. The blueprint is in your hands, but a blueprint is just paper until you start the build. The next stage of your evolution is waiting. Click the video on the screen right now to understand how the elite manage their risk. Don't go back to the mindless scroll. Don't let the matrix pull you back in. Stay sharp, stay sovereign. This is Pinto Invests.